What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. I'm your host, James Lynch, always joined by my co-host, JHK. If you haven't watched the show before, basically, we preview an upcoming notable fight. And on this edition, we're going to be looking at the Bantamweight title rematch between champion Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. I know that was a controversial statement I said there right off the bat, but we are going to be talking about that fight here today. It's going to be coming up in a bit. So we'll be previewing that fight. Then we'll be doing a Q&A the rest of the show. If we could stick to the Bantamweight title fight, that would be awesome. But we'll obviously answer any MMA questions you may have. A couple quick housekeeping notes. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button on this video. And also make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app where you can put in your picks. You can go toe-to-toe with us. As usual, I still got to get my picks in as soon as possible, but it's on my list of things to do today. JHK, how's it going, buddy?
Good, man. I'm excited to break down this fight because, you know, when I watched the first fight, I thought this way about it, and then when I rewatched it, I was like, man, I missed a lot of what was going on in the first couple of rounds. So I'm ready, man.
Yeah, let's get into it. Before we get into it, we got to show you this video, the audio corner of Petr Yan in that first fight, which is part of the controversy of this fight, and we'll get to it now. Producer Michael, take it away.
Control. Let's go, Pete. Control now. We need to dig deep. Keep that pressure.
Punch. Just punch. Just punch.
There we go. Ah, yes. Yes.
So there you go. It's Petr Yan getting the illegal knee on Aljamain Sterling, which is what caused all this controversy and is what made Aljamain Sterling the Bantamweight champion. That's why we're here. It's such an interesting fight because of the fact that you've got just a very competitive matchup. I know on paper it doesn't look that way, at least some of the odds that we're seeing coming out, but it's a combination of that and all this stuff that's happened outside the cage, of course, with the illegal knee, with Aljamain Sterling winning the title, with Aljamain Sterling, a lot of people feeling like he shouldn't be the champion. How excited for you first are you for this fight? Because I think it's got a bit of everything, and it's definitely one of the more anticipated fights this year, I think.
Of course, man. Whenever there's a rematch and then there's controversy surrounding the rematch, especially this type of controversy, it was historic, right? There has been never been a champion who lost their title due to a disqualification. So, a lot of people are not accepting Aljamain Sterling as the champion, and it's all good, man. Like, you could accept whatever you want to accept. Aljamain's walking around with that gold belt, so he has to go and defend it. And I'm pretty sure Petr Yan wants that belt back. So, let's get it on.
So as we usually do, we talk about how we got here. We sort of talked about that already with the fact that, it was an illegal knee that awarded Aljamain Sterling as the Bantamweight champion. A lot of things will have happened since then. There's been this talk of, Sterling being this fake champion, that he took the easy way out. A lot of people comparing this situation to what happened to Anthony Smith against John Jones. And I really don't think they're comparable, honestly. I think it's two completely different situations where Smith didn't really, it wasn't a legal shot, but it wasn't something that you could see that Smith was like out of the fight completely. With Sterling, you could tell he was visibly upset. People call that acting. I don't know. I've never taken a knee to the head. It doesn't look that pleasant, so I'm not entirely sure. But the rules are the rules. If your knee is on the ground, or if you're positioned in a spot where you're touching the ground, your opponent cannot knee you in the head, and that's exactly what happened. The only person to blame here is Petr Yan. He broke the rules. That's how it goes down. Personally, I've said this many times. I don't think they should have awarded a champion. I think they should have made the title vacant, similar to what happened with Deiveson Figueiredo when he missed weight against Joseph Benavidez in their first fight, with Deiveson Figueiredo having to vacate the belt even though he won. So I think that would have been the better solution, because now you have this, a guy in Sterling who really didn't do anything wrong. I guess the thing that would have helped, sort of win fans over a little bit is if he basically just put the belt down and said, look, I'm not the real champion until I get the rematch. That would have saved so many issues, but now he's public enemy number one. And it kind of sucks, John, because Aljamain is actually a really good guy, really good personality. And I think he's a pretty exciting fighter as well. But unfortunately, that's clouding a lot of people when it comes to this matchup. Like, I've seen some hatred. Obviously I interview Colby Covington all the time, but this is on another level, man. Like, I don't know if you've been seeing all this leading into the fight.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of it. And, I think it has a lot to do with like what happened the days after.
Yeah.
Not really what happened after the illegal knee. It's the days after, with all the pictures that went up with Aljo celebrating the win and holding the belt and, enjoying the fruits of his labor, but really there was no labor in some people's eyes, right? And I see that's why people are attacking Aljo. And the Russian fans, dude, like the Russian fans are ruthless, man. Like they're so hardcore. Like if they hate you over there, I don't think as a fighter you should go over there at all. like Connor. I don't think Connor's ever going to go to Russia or any of
Never.
those.
That's never happening unless he's got like an army of like 50, I don't know, some crazy amount of people around him. But yeah, that's true.
Exactly. So, with Sterling, man, he is getting a lot of hate. Some of it's justified, I think. I think he kind of wanted to play the troll a little bit. I feel
Mhm.
like that, even though I know that he's a well-spoken guy, he seems like a good guy, a guy that is pretty straightforward, but he kind of pulls people's legs a lot. You've seen it happen throughout the years. And I think that's what he's doing here. He's like, he sees an opportunity to kind of draw more attention to himself, even if it's hate. And he's just pulling their legs, man, just pulling their legs. And people are falling for it. So good for him, man, because it's drawing attention to this rematch.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, no matter what Sterling did, there's going to be people who hate him no matter what. You might as well just run with it. It's no different than TJ Dillashaw. He did the steroids. There's their PEDs or whatever you want to call it. He got caught. He got suspended. Live it up. I mean, I took it. I'm going to come back. I'm a snake, whatever. I mean, he does, he sort of lived it up. I think Aljamain Sterling sort of doing the same thing here. So the reason this rematch is taking place later in the year as opposed to something later on is that Aljamain Sterling got surgery. So that's another thing we should talk about is the fact that he had some injuries going into the fight. It was my understanding it was a neck thing, got the surgery, seems to be better now. And now here we are with the fight coming up here on, what day is it here? It is October 30th, I think. Yes, it is. UFC 267, which is going to be on Fight Island. So that's another interesting thing is that this rematch will not be taking place in Vegas. It will be on Fight Island as well. So yeah, this was the fight to make. I know there was talk of, maybe Corey Sandhagen stepping in, obviously not now with Dillashaw winning, Aldo. I mean, there's all types of names that have been sort of thrown out here, but this was the fight to make and glad to see they did the rematch. And hopefully we'll get a conclusion from this fight, but let's get into it. We've talked enough about how we got here. We've got Sterling and Yan, Aljamain Sterling, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Petr Yan, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. It's weird to think that Yan is 4 years younger. Like you wouldn't think of that. I don't know. It seems like they're the same age. Height and reach, not much of a difference. Aljo with a bit of a reach advantage in this fight, but pretty similar fighters in terms of height, reach, age, all that stuff. I mean, 4 years is nothing. I mean, let's get real here. So prior to winning the bantamweight title, again, I know controversial statement, Aljamain Sterling picked up probably the most impressive win in his career when he finished Corey Sandhagen in the very first round. It was the first time that Sandhagen not only lost in the octagon, but it was also the first time that Corey Sandhagen had been finished in a fight. So that was a minute finish. That was great. The Pedro Munoz fight was impressive as well. I think a lot of people forget that fight where, he basically just outstruck Pedro Munoz. We saw Munoz go toe-to-toe with Aldo. I mean, I think Sterling gave him even more of a beating than Aldo did in that fight. So a really impressive win there. And then he had the wins over Rivera, Cody Stamen at the time, he was 17-1, Brett Johns, who was undefeated at the time. This guy has really turned things around since losing to Marlon Moraes a few years back in 2017. He's looked like a different fighter and also has switched camps, right? A mainstay at Longo Serra. With everything going on with the pandemic, he decided to move out to Vegas, and I think that's been a great fit for him. You got the PI there, you got Eric Nixick, his coaches fly out. Merab Dvalishvili, one of his main training partners, has come out, obviously training in Vegas as well. So Sterling's got a lot going for him in this fight. Even though I see that he is a big underdog in this fight, and we'll get to that in a second. But just your thoughts on Aljamain Sterling and what he brings to the table.
I think Aljamain Sterling, man, like throughout his career, he kind of was a guy that you would see as a guy that's up there, but he's not up there. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't reached that next level until we saw him go in there and just strangle Corey Sandhagen. Because Corey Sandhagen had all the hype. A lot of people are talking about him being the next champion. He's the next this, next that. And Sterling went in there and just took him out. So simple, so easy, man. The perfect way you should take somebody out, because Aljo's not known for his knockout power, right? He's not going to go out there and knock anybody out. We haven't seen that yet, right? Maybe he can, I don't know, but most likely he won't. And I think that's what's important for him. And I hope he realizes that he needs to go in there and he needs to focus on his strengths, right? And that's what I want to see in this fight. And I think like in the first fight, he didn't do that as much, and it kind of hurt him at the end. You know what I mean? Because eventually, if that fifth round came, a lot of people said what they said about it. Like they thought Petr Yan was going to take over and win that fight. But with Aljo, man, I've been impressed with him, man. I've been impressed more lately because he's beaten Pedro Munoz, Corey Sandhagen, Jimmy Rivera, all
Cody
ranked
Stamen,
guys. And Cody
Brett Johns.
Stamen, yeah, just like, and impressively too. Not just like he scathed through, you know what I mean, split decisions, like he's dominated these guys, right? So it shows you that he's earned this spot throughout the years, because I feel like a lot of people probably forgot about him. Not forgot about him, but gave up on him. Like, this guy, he's just gonna be middling in the rankings, and he's gonna beat this guy but lose to this guy. And he's proven to everybody, like, hey, I'm championship caliber, because why? I have the belt.
Yeah. Let's talk quickly about the first fight. This is my, like, and again, I know you went back and actually watched it. I haven't, but this is what I remember, because we were doing a live stream that night, and this is sort of how I remember the fight. So you can correct me here, and then we'll get into Petr Yan in a second here. But I remember the fight being pretty competitive for a couple rounds. I remember thinking, I don't know who won that round. Both guys were sort of implementing, strikes and a variety of things in the fight. There was a point, though, I remember Yan taking over. I want to say it was the third round specifically was where you could clearly see he won the round. And then even in the fourth round prior to the knee, I felt like Yan was on his way to winning the fight, because he was really sort of taking over. And you might have given him a couple of those early rounds as well. But this is a key thing, because, we'll get to the odds in a second here. But to me, well, actually, no, we'll get to them now. Why is Petr Yan a minus 400? I don't get that. Like, I think Yan absolutely showed that he was the better fighter in that, despite the illegal knee and all that. Well, it's minus 305 here, but I've seen other books as high as minus 400. Minus 400 to me is like if Edson Barbosa and Dan Hooker had a rematch after Edson Barbosa beat the brakes off him the first time. That would be a minus 400, because you felt like there was no chance that Dan was going to win that fight. Barbosa was all over him. I don't feel the same way about that first fight. I felt like Aljo did have some good moments in that fight, especially early on. Yes, Yan was taking over, but minus 400, even in this case, minus 305, that's too steep. 2-1, maybe. I'm fine with that. But anything above that, I think people are just showing their hatred for Aljo as opposed to what happened in that first fight. So just do you agree with that? And second off, we'll get into Yan right after that.
Yeah, minus 400 is a little crazy, man. And, this brings me back to a chat that I had with Rashad Evans. And I asked him about odds, and he said, man, you don't know about these bookmakers, man. They might know something that you don't know, that you're not thinking of what they're thinking, and they could be right. So maybe they're right. I don't know, but I don't think they're right, man. I think it's a little too, what do you call it? High, or is it high or low?
Yeah, the line is too high here.
Okay,
let me just I'm actually going to double check right now to see what the line opened at.
So while you double check,
yeah.
like, I wanted to talk about the first fight, though, round by round. If you look at the first round, Aljo comes out, he's switching stances, he's hitting Petr Yan with the teeps, he's nailing him with a jump forward knee, and he's doing really well on the feet against Petr Yan. And Petr Yan is known to kind of start slow, and he kind of like builds up through the round. So nobody was thinking anything of it. In that first round, I think Aljo was like winning the round until like the 3-minute mark, and then Petr Yan knocked him down with the overhand right, and then he knocked him down again with the leg kick, and then I think that's why people thought maybe Petr Yan won that first round. The second round was very similar. Aljo goes in there, starts fast, he's dominating in the beginning, and then Petr Yan kind of takes over at the end. And then you're right, the third round, it was more of Petr Yan just winning the whole round, and then the fourth round, that's when the illegal knee happened, and it was just like the tide had shifted. Aljo looked a little bit more fatigued, but man, the first two rounds, it was clear that these two dudes are the best of the best, man. They were going back and forth. One thing that stuck out the most about the first two rounds, or just the whole fight, is that a lot of people thought Sterling's wrestling was going to be better than Yan. That's not the case. Yan defended a lot of the takedowns. Even though Sterling took him down, he got right back up. Yan took him down, but it was like a different style of wrestling. It was more of like the Muay Thai trips and stuff like that. But still, it shows you that Sterling is not going to dominate the wrestling like a lot of people thought he was going to.
Talked about the odds there. It seemed like just looking at a couple different books, Yan did open as like a minus 350, which again I think is too high. I think he should have been 2-1. The public has since bet that up, so we should be clear about that. That the odds makers actually set it to what we have here on the screen. But I've seen other books where it's getting higher, and that is the fans betting on it. That's when you see a line open at a certain price, and then you see it go up or down. That's people either betting for the fighter or against the fighter. So we should be clear about that as well. That sometimes the betting public comes into this, but this seems like a classic example where the line's going to get driven up so much because of one guy they don't like. And it, again, it's like, it reminds me of, Colby Covington as well, where, people don't like him. And so people are betting against the opponent. There's a lot that sort of plays into that as well. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about Petr Yan though, undefeated in the UFC. Well, I guess technically he lost to Sterling, but outside of that, he's looked amazing. Some really good wins. Sort of the big knock on Petr Yan in his career was the level of opposition. And I think that's something that people looked at going into the first fight. His first couple fights, Douglas Andrade, John Dodson, not exactly great. Jimmy Rivera had been beaten by Sterling, I think, prior to that. So him beating Rivera. And that was a fight where it's not like it was a dominant win there for Yan. Rivera had his moments in that fight at UFC 238. So he ends up getting the win there. The Uriah Faber win, great, but Uriah Faber's, hadn't fought in a while. The Aldo win was great, but even in that fight, that was a closer fight, and then sort of same sort of thing as this last fight where Yan was taking over later in the fight. But still, that's probably the best win of his career is the Jose Aldo fight, because we've seen Aldo finish. It's the first time that Aldo's been finished at 135. For him to do it, even though it was late, it was still impressive. And I think that was a fight as well where the ref could have stepped in a little bit earlier and stopped it for Yan finishing Aldo. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But I don't think the level of competition makes a difference in terms of what he's done and some of the performances he's put on. He's outstanding. The thing with Yan is he's good everywhere. Like there's not one area of weakness really you can point to. Like even his cardio, you could argue that that's superior to a lot of bantamweights with the fact that he's getting these finishes so late in the fight. So really high on Petr Yan and what he's been able to do, and we'll have to sort of see how this rematch unfolds. All right, I'm going to get to my pick as we usually do. I'm going to go Petr Yan in this fight. I feel better about picking him because of what we saw in the first fight. Now, here's a couple factors I want to warn some people about. Number one, like I was saying, I think the betting public doesn't like Aljo, so that you're going to see the line, zoom up. So if you're going to bet Petr Yan, probably now is the time to bet it, because I think the line's going to go up even further. Just my assessment. Again, a lot of people don't like him. Number two is the fact that Sterling, may or may not have been injured in that fight. He claims he was. The surgery, he could look better, but then he could also look worse, right? Fighters coming off surgery, you never know. There's sort of that intangible as well. So we'll have to see sort of what's happening. And the other thing you got to wonder is there pressure for Aljo to come back a little bit too early? I do wonder that, right? Like everyone wants this rematch. Aljo doesn't want to give up his belt. So is there pressure for him to come back a bit early? I don't know if that's the case. I'm hoping to get an interview with him and find out exactly. Not that he say, oh yeah, I'm coming back too early, whatever. He's not going to reveal that, but I am curious to hear if it was a bit early, because anything with a neck or, head or anything like that sounds pretty serious. And this, this injury that with the first fight took place in March. That's not that long ago if you think about it, right? So I do wonder if, Sterling is ready to come back 100%, but based off what we've seen from both fighters, based off their first fight, I have to pick Petr Yan. There's no way in hell I'm betting minus 330 or whatever, minus 400. I think that's too steep for me. I may take the inside the distance prop if you're going to go that route, but I think Yan probably wins, but I think this is also a case where people are overlooking Aljo. So John, your pick, and how do you see the rematch going down?
Before I get to my pick, I wanted to talk about Petr Yan and his run into UFC. Man, one thing that we've seen from Petr Yan that I feel like a lot of people glance over is that he's been dropped. And he's come back from every time he's been dropped. I think he was dropped by Dodson. I think he was dropped by Rivera.
Dropped by Rivera,
yeah, Rivera, right? And he's come back and won both of those fights. There were closer fights than a lot of people remember, but that tells me a lot about Petr Yan. And another thing about Petr Yan is he just implements his style against everybody. He doesn't have to adjust to people. Like Sterling has to adjust, I think, more than Petr Yan does. Petr Yan will go in there and just fight his fight. And like you said, he's just good everywhere. He's really good in the scrambles, man. And he's really good in the clinch, and he's really good just in his boxing, man. It's just crisp, like the way he fights. And I love his style, man. Like he's when TJ Dillashaw was at his peak before he got suspended, got caught for the PEDs. Like I look at Petr Yan like that. Like he's that type of fighter. Like he's at that type of level. And I just love watching him fight. And I love watching Aljo fight, or Aljo? Is it? Yeah, Aljo fight. Yeah. You get confused with Aljo and Aldo, man. It's just like, well, Sterling, you know what I mean? Like and when you look back at the first fight, when they stopped the fight, you know who landed the most strikes, right? Sterling.
Yeah, that's right.
Sterling outlanded him 97 to 86, right? It's just the damage that was done with those strikes. That was the difference maker, I believe. Now with this fight, my pick is going to be Petr Yan, man. Like, how could you go against Petr Yan? Like, I would never pick against Petr Yan. Like, he's one of those guys I would never pick against until he loses. And I don't even think he's going to lose. Like, who do you see in that bantamweight division? There's a couple guys coming up, I believe, that will give him some problems. But, man, I don't know, man. Sterling, the only path to victory for him is to get it to the ground and go for the submissions fast. Because
that's exactly
one thing about Yan is once he gets to the ground, he scrambles so well that he's not going to get really caught in anything. He's not going to play around on the ground at all. He's not going to let you take his back. I think like Aljo with the Corey Sandhagen fight, Corey Sandhagen is so long and lean that it was easier to snatch onto him and backpack him, right? Petr Yan is short, compact, right? and thick. I don't think you could do that with him. And when I see this fight, I just see Petr Yan going in there and just doing the same exact thing he did to everybody else. He starts slow and he takes over in the 4th round or 3rd round, and then he just beats the brakes out of him. And that's what I see in this fight. I see Yan doing the same exact thing. I see Yan doing what he did to Jose Aldo to Sterling. And you mentioned the injury. That's a big red flag too, man. Coming back from an injury, a neck surgery. But I talked to Eric Nixick and he told me, Sterling is fine, man. Like, he's been training. But the thing is, like, right now as we speak, I know that Sterling is in New York training and he's not in Vegas training. So I wonder what's going on with that too. Is he doing half his camp in New York and half his camp in Vegas, or is he just doing his whole camp in New York? You need to get the interview because I can't get the interview for some reason.
I'll help you get the interview. You can get the interview. We'll work on that because you should be able to interview him. But no, I think they were in Georgia, right? Him, Iaquinta, and Merab. So I guess they're back. That's something I actually been trying to keep tabs on because I'm trying to get Iaquinta. I actually have like a mutual friend there that's going to help hook that up. But yeah, I want to know myself. I think part of it is probably him just wanting to go there for a bit now and just sort of starting his camp there and then finishing in Vegas. I think he's done that before, so I wouldn't look too much into it. Speaking of camps, though, Petr Yan, where is he training right now? I know he is in Russia right now. I think the plan is for him to go train at ATT again because I spoke to Arman Saryukin, who's like really good friends with Yan. They've trained together and they were trained back at Tiger Muay Thai. I think the plan is for Yan to come out a little bit later, but I don't think he's there yet by the looks of it because I interviewed Saryukin, I think it was last week or the week before, and I asked him, I said, is Yan there with you? He's like, no, he's coming later. So we'll see. So keep an eye on that. I mean, I think that's a good American camp for Petr Yan, but he can't train in Thailand, obviously, because of the pandemic.
He is in Russia or he's in Siberia, and
I believe he's in Russia or Siberia. Yeah, somewhere international. That's
he's in his home. He's in his home gym, right, where he comes from, right? And I believe his strength and conditioning coach at Tiger Muay Thai flew into Russia a couple of days ago. So he's working with them there. Most likely they're going to fly to the States and finish their camp at America Top Team. I don't see why he would not do that. That's what he did last time, and you have to get acclimated, man. Oh, actually. The fight's on Fight Island.
Actually, no. You know what? You're right. Actually, now that I remember, I think he actually said that he wasn't coming to ATT. So you completely reminded me right now because of the fact that it'll be closer. And that's another factor as well, is that Aljo's got to make the big trip. I don't know my geography very well, but I don't think Russia's as far to get to Abu Dhabi as it would be safer in the US.
Siberia is far though. Like Siberia to Abu Dhabi, that's pretty far, man. That's pretty far, yeah. Is
it as far as the US though? I do wonder that, but I don't know. Anyways, I guess in a lot of cases, Jan's used to traveling anyways. So he's
fought there before.
Yeah,
he won the title there, so it's not like it's a new location for him. For Sterling, it's new. It's a new environment, and sometimes that doesn't work out for you, especially in a big pressure cooker like he's gonna be in, because there's a lot of expectations for him because he's holding that belt. If he loses, if he gets finished, man, just imagine where does he go from here? Think of the criticism that he'll take for losing the belt, like embarrassingly, right? If he does lose the belt like that. So, it's a big moment for Sterling, man, because he's been around for a long time, man, and he's older. Petr Yan, man, he's got many years to go. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I can't wait for this fight, man, because I know Sterling's gonna put up a hard fight too, because he's a dog, man. He'll go in there and trade with you. So we'll just see if he can last long enough, to win that belt. I don't know.
I'll put this on the other side though. What if Yan loses? What happens then? Like,
Yan got a bunch of fights, man.
He does, but at the same time, like, that's going to look really bad. That, like, it's pretty hard to get a third fight against someone. I know the first fight ended with the DQ, but it might be hard for him to get a trilogy fight if he loses this one. Like with Aljo, like, you're right. Like, if he loses, it's kind of high risk for both. It's kind of how I look at it. More so for Sterling because he's got to prove all the doubters wrong with Yan. But then I guess conversely for Yan, he's got to show that the first fight that he was winning, he's going to finish it. So there's a lot going into this, and that's why we're so excited for the fight. So it's going to be great. All right, let's get to the chat here, everyone. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you subscribe to the make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app, the best app in the game. Euro, what is up, my man? Every live stream this guy's on, I love it. He says he says what's good? Everything's good. Yan being minus 400, might as well take a stab at the champ, right? If you want to. I mean, I don't know. Like, again, I think it's a bit of a risk in the sense that we don't know what type of Sterling we're going to see off surgery and all that, but we'll see. I mean, look, if you think there's a sliver of chance that Aljo is going to win this fight, absolutely bet that. The value's for sure on him. Antoine, good morning, John and James. Since we know TJ is next for the winner of this fight, and since people have Yan winning, who do you have in Yan versus Dillashaw? I'm going with JHK. I kind of like Charles Oliveira in lightweight. I'm not going to pick pick against against Yan until I think that he's beatable. Like I think he beats TJ. I think he's that much better. He's active. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's, finished some impressive fights, including Aldo. And, again, I think Yan's going to be the champ for a while if he does end up getting this win here.
TJ, what's interesting about that fight with Sandhagen is that he injured himself, or he got injured in that submission, and he still fought through. And that was great. It showed his grit and everything. And it showed that he's still at a high level. But it also showed that, is his body falling apart, man? Like, because you remember when he went into that suspension, he got shoulder surgery on both shoulders, and then he comes back and then rips his knee apart. It's like, dude, once that starts, domino effect, man. Like, that's not good for Dillashaw. And with Yan, if Dillashaw goes there and fights Petr Yan like he fought Corey Sandhagen, Yan like, I don't know if he destroys him, but he beats him. And like you said, I'm not picking against Yan until he loses.
I thought Anthony Smith's illegal knee looked worse. Sterling just sold his better. So there you go. There's a school of thought of that as well. I don't know, because I was at that fight, I remember thinking like, yeah, that sucks. But I didn't think Smith was like visibly like, if you look at the two, Jan's was like a swinging like knee, like straight to the head. Whereas I think with Smith's, I think it was more of like, it was a hit to the head, but it didn't look as bad. Just my vantage point. Maybe I have to go back and watch both of them, but that's what I remember. So again, apples, oranges, whatever. I don't know. That's all I have to kind of look at it. Noah, what's up, man? He says, thoughts on this being a non-pay-per-view event, but being on ABC. But I do say so myself. It's pretty stacked card for not having to pay $65. That's true. Two things. I think they wanted an ABC card again, right? And so they couldn't just give him like a regular fight night card. So they needed something a little bit more beefier. Remember, Max Holloway was on the first ABC card. So you got to remember that as well. Number two is the time. This card, I don't know what time it's on at, but it's in Abu Dhabi. I don't think it's 11 a.m. in the morning. So that's also why as well, I think pay-per-view, I'm not sure the research on this, but I would imagine that pay-per-view sales on a morning card, probably not as great, right? So I think that was part of it as well. Maybe they didn't want to risk, flipping out the, trying to make money off of a daytime pay-per-view. So those are two theories. Again, nothing confirmed, but that's just my hunch as to why they made this non-pay-per-view. You got anything on your end that you've heard of?
Well, I just look at it like this. If you're complaining about the UFC having too many pay-per-views and they're too high priced, here you go, man. They're giving you a free pay-per-view on ABC. As long as you have ABC, you're going to get to watch like you said, it's a pretty stacked card. You don't have to pay $65. Sit back and enjoy it. Don't worry about why they're doing it, because who cares? It's going to be on ABC. It's going to be for you. You don't have to pay the money. Take that $65 and put it on Petr Yan. That's what you should do.
Antoine, great question here. Oh, hold on. Actually, I missed another one. He says, Antoine says, what you guys said about Conor going to Russia made me die laughing, but I also remember he did go to Moscow. Remember when that fan threw the bottle at him? Haha, that's true. Yeah, I don't think now he'll go. I mean, things are really personal. He's pissing everyone off. Left, right, and center. So it's not good. Who does the loser of this matchup fight? That's a great question. Okay, so if Sterling loses, it's not going to fight Sandhagen because they already fought. You could do Jose Aldo. You could do Rob Font. I don't think there's any reason why none of those winners could fight one of the losers of this fight, because it is a title fight. I think there's a lot of options there. Obviously not Pedro Munoz. They fought already. So it'd have to be, I would think it would be a fresh matchup, but something that
I could see the loser fighting Rob Font. I think they're trying to push Rob Font, and another main event fight night. They could put Rob Font against the loser of this fight. And I don't know, does Rob Font have a fight coming up? There's no word, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's sitting back, seeing like how the landscape changes in the next couple of months, and then slide in. And it's smart, man. I think it's smart because Rob is on a roll right now, man, and he has to keep fresh. So let's see what happens.
Noah says, I thought Hamzat would be on this main card for this card against the Leech, but I'm pretty sure he's the prelim headliner. Is it to showcase Hamzat to a lot of viewers? And is this the right move? Yeah, I mean, they would know better than we would, I think, when it comes to placement of fights. I guess it doesn't matter because it's free, right? So I don't know. I'm guessing, maybe they wanted to beef up the prelims. Because I guess the prelims are the prelims on, let me double check this. I was gonna say, the prelims on ESPN, or are they still on ESPN Plus? I gotta double check that. But that's another thing. I do wonder which audience they're catering to. So it looks like, prelims are on ESPN Plus. Maybe it's just to boost ESPN Plus, and they're like, hey, come subscribe to our thing because we got Hamzat fighting. I think that's the thinking there. So That would be my. And also, I think. Okay, here's another thing I'll mention. I think they think there's going to be a finish in that fight, specifically Hamzat. So that's a clip you could show on the pay-per-view as well, or the ABC card, right? So best of both worlds.
They could, man. And I just interviewed the Leech. That should be coming out in the next couple of days.
Nice. I got to follow up. Did you go through his management to do that one?
Yes, management, and then his coach manager in China. So there's some hoops, man. There's some hoops.
That's okay. I'll go through those hoops as well. Cole Shelton, this is also the first time Sterling will be fighting outside the States in his career. It will be interesting to see how the travel and change plays a factor. Great point there, Cole. Shout out to Cole Shelton at Cole Shelton91 on Twitter, one of the best in the game. Broke the Dan Hooker fight recently, which was great. So good for him. J-Spec Driver, don't worry, I'm here. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to you as well, J-Spec Driver. Noah called me crazy, but I think Aljo could get a submission victory, and he's going to need a lot of ground control to win that decision because he's not going to outpoint Yan on the feet. Great point. I would agree. Maybe even look at that. Like I said, if the line's getting crazy, maybe throw a little bit on that Aljo by submission prop. It's got to be something nuts, right? If he's already that big of an underdog. So keep that in mind as far as like ways that Aljo can win this fight. Antoine says, since bantamweight is so competitive, who could you guys see holding the belt the longest, or is it too hard to tell? I'll just stick with Yan. Play it safe. I think he'll hold it for a while.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm on the Yan bandwagon, man. I'm just gonna let you guys know that.
J-Spec Driver, do you think Bubba Watkins goes to the PFL final? It's Bubba Jenkins. Isn't Bubba Watkins? I don't know who Bubba Watkins is.
Is he a football player?
Might be.
Well, I guess Bubba Jenkins, right? I don't think Bubba Watkins fights for the PFL.
Now I'm curious. Is there a Bubba Watkins?
I think so in the NFL.
Bubba Watkins, no, he's the NASCAR driver. Remember the one that? No. There's Bubba Watson, the golfer, and then. Anyways, we wasted way too much time on a fighter that doesn't exist. I think he's got a good shot. I think his wrestling is going to give a lot of people problems. Like what he did to Lance Palmer in that opening round of this year's season was incredible, and I think that continues. I think he's definitely got to be one to keep in mind for sure. He'll definitely go to the final, I'm pretty sure. He's fighting Chris Wade, is he not? I think he probably wins.
Yeah, you can't overlook Chris Wade either, man. He looked pretty good in his last fight.
J-Spec Driver, Leo Rodriguez, I can't decide, so need your help. Lee, but not optimistic. Again, he's a guy coming off a layoff and some surgery. D-Rod hits like a truck. He's going to, definitely not make it an easy fight for Kevin, but Kevin does have a path to victory if he chooses to use it, and that is his wrestling. If you look at D-Rod's opponents, not a lot of wrestlers in there, and I think Lee does have a way to win if he just sticks with that game plan instead of trying to get too fancy and try and go for the knockout, because it's going to be tough for him. Rodriguez is a pretty big welterweight, so I think Lee might have trouble getting in on the inside. So.
Yeah, that's what troubles me right there, because I believe Lee's last fight was against Greg Gillespie, and he got the head kick knockout, right? So
no, it was Charles Oliveira, and he got.
Oh, it was Charles Oliveira. Okay,
yeah.
Really? It was Charles Oliveira's last fight?
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, his last fight was Charles Oliveira. Remember, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. It was in Brazil.
He hasn't fought since then.
No, the Gregor Gillespie fight was before that. That was on the New York card, the Diaz and Masvidal BMF title fight. Yeah.
I'm so confused, man. But like you said, Rodriguez hits like a truck, dude. And if Kevin wants to oblige in the stand-up, that's dangerous because Rodriguez is a big welterweight, right? And Lee's coming up to welterweight. So I don't know. If Rodriguez, I believe Rodriguez is the underdog, I'd throw some money on there, man, right there. Right,
it's a 50-50 fight. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for Kevin Lee, that's for sure. J-Spec Driver, I just want to shout out Amanda Serrano. She's massively underrated in the boxing, plus she does MMA. Hope she gets more fame as the Paul and Woodley co-main. Female world champs doing more than the men. I agree. I got a little gripe with Amanda Serrano. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, she and Jared Gordon got into it on Twitter, and she was basically making fun of Jared for being in rehab and all this stuff. Just, it was a bad look. She never really apologized for it. I'm not one to hold on to things. That's just my only complaint with Amanda, but I know she's the one that basically got Pearl Gonzalez to leave San Diego and come over to Brooklyn and train over there. And you're right. She's a great fighter, her and her sister. Good for her. And good to see the females getting more shine in the boxing world. I know it's been an issue for a long time. So I think this is going to help them for sure, being on the Paul and Woodley card, which, by the way, if you guys are watching that on Sunday, I will be doing a live stream on my channel. I know John's busy. It's a Sunday night. Trust me, I don't want to be live streaming on a Sunday night, but it is Jake Paul and Woodley. So I figure I got to do something there. So no co-host right now. Maybe I'll get one, but for now, just going to be doing that solo. So make sure you tune in on Sunday, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. Let's get to Euro. He says, Rob Font versus Yan. If Yan wins, who do you got? Okay, I'm confused by the question here. You said, if Yan wins, who do you got? Well, obviously I would have Yan if I'm picking him to win. I would pick Yan in that fight. And how do I think he would win? I don't know. Rob's been submitted before. I don't think he's been knocked out. Probably a decision. I think Rob's pretty durable. So
Durable, and he's really good on the feet too, man. He's shown a lot in the last couple of fights, but yeah, I'd still take Yan in that fight. I think, yeah, like decision would be the best bet.
Do you guys think it's more likely that Tyron knocks out Jake or Jake knocking out Tyron? Oh, easily Jake knocking out Tyron. Like, Jake's been training boxing for 3 years straight. Woodley was in the UFC last year, or even this year, he lost to Luque, right? So I think, like, he hasn't been doing specific boxing training. I know MMA is a complete sport, but they are different sports in terms of how you train and the discipline and all that. So I think, I think Woodley's going to have his work cut out for him. I've already said this. I'm picking Jake Paul. I think I will take a guy who's spent 3 years, training with the best in boxing, who's actually a decent athlete, over a guy who's 39, taking a ton of damage, and who hasn't had a knockout win since 2016. So that's sort of what I'm looking at in this fight in terms of Jake and Tyron in the boxing match. So yeah, I would think it's more likely Jake wins by knockout. What do you think?
I think the opposite. I think Tyron goes out there and just brawls with them. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Tyron's going to go out there. Doesn't matter about skill in the boxing. It's just going to be them just going at it. And Tyron has more heat in the hands, man. He's still got the heat. Remember, they always say the knockout power goes last. So it doesn't matter how old he is, as long as he can connect with those punches. I feel like it could happen. But Jake is much more technical in the boxing.
He's bigger.
And he's bigger, and that's a trip, right? Because we would always think like Tyron is bigger, when we see Jake on TV, but no, Jake is a big boy. So I'm man, I wish I was on a live show with you because I wanted to watch.
Okay,
that.
next time we'll do another circus show boxing thing. Maybe Tito and Anderson. I don't know. We'll see. I think the entire MMA community is behind Woodley this weekend, and how cool would it be if he's able to KO Jake Paul? It'd be awesome redemption story. Yeah, I mean, it would certainly win some people over. I know Tyron's had a rough couple of years. I mean, it's just crazy to think that he lost that welterweight title to Usman in 2019. That's not that long ago, and just to see the downfall he's had since then, hasn't won a fight. Finished by Colby, finished by Luque. Like, it's been a steep decline there for Woodley. And typically MMA stories don't end well, but it's just tough for Tyron, because I remember there was a point talking about him being the GOAT, and it certainly hasn't looked that way the last couple of fights. So yeah, I'm on the fence. I mean, I'm picking Jake to win, so I kind of hope he wins, but we'll see. You never know when it comes to these fights.
At least he's going out with the big payday. No matter what happens in this fight, he's going to go out with the big payday, and he still has the Hollywood thing and the rap career that he could kind of fall back on. You could do that until you're like 80 years old. So
I don't know how that rap career is going. It seems to be a bit of a backfire, but I know what you mean. He's got stuff outside the cage.
Yeah, he's got stuff going on. So, what I mean? Like, he could still draw, and doesn't he still do stuff for TMZ? He could do that for the rest of his life. Why not?
Yeah. Woodley is not a boxer. This is a fight where everyone finally says, okay, Jake Paul is good. We'll see. Again, a lot is on the line for both guys. Here's my other thing too, and I talked about this. Did a video for Odds Checker, just giving my pick and all that. Showtime's not signing Jake Paul and not giving him an opponent unless they feel he can win. Now, look, we've seen stuff backfire. Look at Bare Knuckle with Paige Van Zandt, right? That's blown up in their face. But I would imagine a promotion that has been enriched in the boxing community for a very long time in Showtime did their research and feels like this is a good first fight for Jake Paul to win. So again, you got to remember that as well. The cash cow is Jake Paul. It's not Woodley for Showtime. So keep that in mind as well. What is up, Sinister Story? One of my patrons. Good to see you here, man. Feel free to submit any questions you want. Euro Woodley is just a sacrificial lamb looking for some money. I won't go that far. I think Woodley will definitely do better than Ben Askren will. Who do you think is more legit champion, Cyril Gane or Sterling? I think Gane. Well, of course people are going to say Gane, right? He did fight for a title. It was a scheduled 5-round fight. If you remember, Ngannou was going to fight Lewis next, so it's just Gane fighting Lewis. I think Gane is more of an official champion at this point because, again, Aljo didn't beat Sterling. Aljo didn't beat Yan. Yan beat himself, which caused Aldo to get the title. That's how we have to look at it. And again, I'm not just
Gane, man, he had one of the best performances we've ever seen, like dominant performances in a title fight at heavyweight in a long time, right? Could you agree with that?
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. Early pick for Yan and Glover. Does Yan just kill him, or does Glover the underdog story? That's one we'll do here in a few weeks, I'm sure. That fight with Yan and Glover. My thing is, if Yan can't finish Glover, how does that fight look? Because Glover has shown time and time again that if you can't finish him, he'll usually come back and finish you, like he did with Anthony Smith, like he did with Thiago Santos. So it's possible, but then it's also like Jan's just like so good as well. Like he's going to be a little bit fat. You know what? I got to go Jan Blachowicz. I have to. I can't pick against this guy anymore. I think I picked Izzy against him. Not going to do that. So I'm taking Yan just on that. I'll go more in depth when we do the preview.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that Glover in his last couple of fights, he's been rocked, right? And then he's come back. Can he get rocked and come back from the power that Yan possesses? That's the question, right? Because I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to trade on the feet and they're going to clip each other. And and someone's going to go down and maybe recover, maybe not. I don't know. But I'll pick Yan, early pick, I mean, just to check it out. But Glover, man, if we always count him out and he just wins. So it's hard to say.
By the way, good job with Volkan and Ankalaev. Now, by the way, good to hear from you, Roman. Roman, by the way, I did reach out to Rakic's management. Haven't heard anything back since he asked me every week, so I figured I'd give him an update there. I don't know. The guy over at MTK is a little bit slow sometimes getting back to me, so I am trying to get something with Rakic because I'm curious what he's doing right now. If Jan Black or if Yuri Prohaska is the backup. But yeah. Good job with Volkan and Ankalaev now that it's moved to 266. I remember Volkan told you it was not confirmed yet. That's true. Yes, it was. So, because I tried to get an interview with him, still can't get a hold of him. So we'll see. See if that ends up coming up. Jose Flores, guys, what do you think about Ferguson versus Madsen? Both same age, but different points of their career. Not happening. I highly doubt that fight happens.
Yeah.
I just don't see Ferguson at this stage in his career fighting a no name. And that's essentially what Madsen is. He was undefeated, and I know they're the same age, and I know it's a great story of what he's had to overcome, but Ferguson is not going to, I have a hard time seeing Ferguson fight someone that's not somewhat notable, which is why I'll say it again for the 50th time. They should do the rematch with him and Cerrone. That's the fight to make. It ended with the cut, if you remember. They're both kind of on their way out at this point. It's a fun fight. Fans would be interested in it. Both of coming off losses. It makes sense to me, right? So,
yeah. Well, Madsen would want that fight, but
of course Madsen would want that fight. Yeah.
Ferguson, I heard somewhere that he's not even like picking the phone up from the matchmakers, because they want to get him booked, but there's no radio silence basically from.
Well, he just
from
had another baby, I think. I think that was the other thing too. So, because
okay.
I talked to Ben Saunders, who I think is doing some work with him, or was doing some work with him leading into his fight. So there you go. Here we go. Jose Flores, question for John. Do you go through that weasel Audiatard in the interviews with Lee?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I've never spoken with Audi.
Yeah, and same here. There's another agent that works for them. There's a couple agents that work for Paradigm. They're great. Honestly,
they're
yeah, they're big, but they're very professional. They're very good. Certainly a lot better than a few years back. They had another agent who was just so disorganized. I remember, I'll never forget this one time I called Wonderboy Thompson for an interview, and he's like, we're doing an interview? And I said, yeah, your manager set up. He's like, oh, shoot. I wasn't told anything. And I was like, okay, that's not good. But no, shout out to Paradigm. Really, I will give credit to the management companies that are good to work with, and Paradigm's one of them. So shout out to them. Shout out to Ruby Sports, who we talked about earlier, because Jan's one of their clients. They're super easy to work with as well. So shout out to the good management companies, not the ones who are limiting their fighters from doing interviews. Jose Flores, unpopular opinion, Merab would be Jan's toughest test, crazy cardio and wrestling. I am interested in that fight. Merab is very, very, very good. Yeah, I don't know how that. I mean, I'd still pick Yan, but that's a very interesting style matchup for sure.
I don't know, Merab. He's very good, but I don't know. I get the kind of like the John Fitch vibes from Merab. Like, he's good and he could wrestle, but he's not the type of champion maybe that the UFC would want at bantamweight, and maybe he won't get the matchups that he needs to get to the title. Or maybe he might just have to go to 145. I don't know, but I don't know. I just get these vibes from Merab, man, that it's not exciting enough for them for the UFC. They want guys like TJ. They want guys like Yan at the top. Sanhagen, flashy guys. But yeah, Merab, he's a problem for everybody. I'll just let you know that right now. Everybody in that division, he's a problem for. He's a monster.
Yeah, and if he wasn't such a nice guy, he'd probably be making some more noise. Literally the nicest guy ever. Like, just super cool guy. Roman, I kind of want Glover to pull out so we can get Yuri on at UFC 267. No disrespect for Glover, though. No, but we got to see the storybook ending for Glover. We got to see him get that title shot. I'm with you. Trust me, I can't wait for Yuri to fight for a title. It's going to be spectacular. People ask me who's like my favorite fighter to watch right now. Yuri's got to be right near the top of the list. Like, who doesn't love watching this guy? He's so interesting. The guy's like going into waterfalls and like cold water, and he's crazy, but he's also like, he's a character, man. Like, I love everything about Yuri. I think he's great. And he likes hockey. There was a story on his Instagram a couple months back. He was watching the World Championships when the Czech Republic were playing. Got huge points in my book for doing some hockey stuff. So shout out to Yuri. Ursul says the top 5 bantamweights are so good, could see the title change hands between the top guys. I don't know. Honestly, I think Yan is a level above everyone else, but we'll see. We'll have to see how this fight goes. We got 15 minutes, but I figured now would be a good time to jump into our underdog picks of the week. Who did I end up picking last week? I can't remember, but
I never remember any of the underdog picks.
You know what? It's going to come to me. Let me just let me have a quick look here from last week. It's UFC Vegas 34, right? I think who's on? Oh yeah, Jared Cannonier was in the main event last week. I'm going to do a quick look here and just see if I can remember who I picked as my underdog. And if I can't, then I just wasted everyone's time and just took up some valuable space here on this program, which I apologize to. But who was it? Who did I take? It might have been on one of the other cards, actually. Now that I think about it. Yeah, I can't remember. I know you picked Sasha Palnikov, who ended up losing. But
that wasn't.
It happens. It happens. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was on one of the other events. But anyways, this week we will go with we got a lot of options. We have not a lot. We just have PFL and the UFC. Let me see. Is there anyone that stands out here? No. I will say this. I think that line for the Muradov and Gerald Meerschaert fight is way off. Why is this guy minus 650? Like, I get that Gerald's been finished a few times, but Gerald also has a really good ground game. Muradov, we've never really seen him test on the ground. I know he has a decent like background in terms of like some of his accolades on the ground, but still, I'll tell you what I was going to take, but I see the line flip back is Barbosa, but he's now the favorite again. So I think people finally came to their senses. But okay, how about PFL? Is there anything in here that kind of? Oh, actually, yeah, there was a few that I liked on PFL. Okay, we'll go to PFL for this one. Here's one for you: Cesar Ferreira and Martin Hamlet. Ferreira, for whatever reason, is the underdog in this fight, and I get that he lost his last fight to Chris Camozzi, but he's got way more experience than Martin Hamlet. Martin Hamlet as well was finished by Corey Hendricks in his last fight, which I mean that was a winnable fight for him. I'll go Cesar Ferreira to pull off the upset here. I think a little bit more experience. I don't think he's that bad. I think he just had a bad night against Camozzi, but I think in most cases he beats his opponents. I know he's a bit older as well, but yeah, going to be going with Cesar Ferreira for the upset over Martin Hamlet. Who's your underdog pick this week?
Even though I'm picking Dustin Jacoby to win, he's the favorite.
Yeah.
I think Darren Stewart has a pretty good chance of winning that fight. You know what I mean? Because in Dustin Jacoby's last fight, he was manhandled for 5 rounds by Ian Cutelaba, right? And I could see Darren Stewart maybe doing something similar to him, even though Dustin Jacoby's a lot better on the feet, I believe. But yeah, that's a good underdog pick right there, even though I'm picking Dustin Jacoby. And another one, you know what I mean, that could be surprising is Abdul Razak. What's his name?
Al Hassan. Not doing it. That guy has fallen off a cliff since that layoff. He has not been the same. Do you remember do you remember, just quickly, sorry to interject here. Do you remember we were watching, we did the live stream for his last fight, fought Calhoun, right? And I remember like, this is a setup fight for Al Hassan, right? Like he's fighting a guy who's way less experienced, and Al Hassan's got dynamite in his hands. He lost that fight. There's no way I can pick that guy. Absolutely not. It's more of a fade on him than liking Di Chirico. But yeah, Al Hassan, I don't know what's happened to that guy, but he's not the same fighter. So no way.
But even though I'm not picking him, I think that he could turn it around, man. Because Alexio, he's coming in on short notice. Al Hassan, he's gone through a full camp. And I don't know, man. He still has that power, dude. Like he could go in there and bang. And in the other fights, he was banging. He just got banged out himself. So I don't know, man. I think he's a good underdog pick in this one. I have to remember these picks because we'll just have to go back and watch it. One more I'll mention. I'm not going to pick her, but Vanessa Demopoulos, who's coming in on short notice to fight JJ Aldrich, she's plus 285. I saw a lot of chatter on Twitter about, Vanessa moving up and that she's, going to be undersized in this fight. If you look at the height and reach, it's not that much of a difference. And on top of that, Vanessa's competed at 125 a number of times in grappling. I actually forgot about that. I only remembered that when I interviewed her. And she was supposed to fight the day before for LFA. So it's not like she was, sitting on the couch. And here's another interesting tidbit. Who's Vanessa training with in this camp? Tracy Cortez, who's supposed to fight JJ Aldrich. So a lot of familiarity with that camp in terms of her fighting JJ Aldrich. So someone to maybe keep in mind in terms of a opponent there. And if you wonder why she's in a very scantily clad photo there, she used to be a former exotic dancer. Little trivia there. If people remember her on Contender Series, they talked about that. So there you go. People are obsessing over that. But JJ Aldrich, this is a mismatch, man. JJ Aldrich is really good. She has a ton of experience against much higher level fighters.
She does.
And Vanessa, who did she lose to on the Contender Series?
She lost to Corey McKenna.
Yes. And Corey McKenna, if you compare her to JJ Aldrich, not even close. Corey McKenna is still in the beginning of her career.
I agree. I just think
rising up.
I think the line's a little. I don't know. I think the line's. I mean, it's minus 400 now. I think that's a little high, but just because JJ Aldrich, she's winning fights, but she's not like blowing people out of the water. Like she beat Courtney Casey. She beat in a fight that I think people felt like should have went the other way. She beat Sabina Mazo, but again, it was a split decision. So I don't know. I'm not as high in JJ Aldrich as some other people are, but she'll likely win. I just think the odds are a little off there. All right, let's get back to the questions here. We got about 9 minutes left here on the program. Sinister trying to become my co-host on Sunday. I'm open to it. We'll talk in the Discord. I'll see who ends up stepping up to the plate, or we'll figure something out. Chikaze said he'd make Edson shoot for a takedown. Listen, 10th Realm, I know you're a huge Chikaze fan. He may very well go out there and win this weekend, and this might be the breakthrough performance. But like we said at length when we previewed this fight, I have to pick Edson Barbosa because I've seen more evidence of Edson Barbosa being in there with high-level fighters than we have a Giga Chikaze. And wins over Erwin Rivera and Jamie Simmons are not enough to make me think he's going to beat a guy like Edson Barbosa. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's like people are forgetting how good Barbosa is. Like, go back and watch the Shane Burgos fight. Toe-to-toe with Burgos, finish Burgos. Super impressive win there. That's why I'm going Barbosa on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think there's any good. There's not going to be no takedowns. Come on. It doesn't matter what happens in the fight. There's no takedowns.
Sebastian says, has there been a decision that got you upset? Mine has to be TJ versus Corey. Thought Corey was a clear winner. Yeah, one recently that comes to mind was Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz. Like, I just had a feeling that Munoz was going to get screwed over. I thought he won that fight, and I felt like, because it's Frankie Edgar, they're like, oh yeah, he did enough. But I know it was a close fight. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a robbery, but I thought Munoz did enough to win that fight. And who knows how that would have changed things, right? Because if Munoz would have won that fight, maybe he gets another, favorable matchup. I don't know, but that was one that kind of irked me recently. So is there one that for you that you remember of?
Man, there's a bunch of decisions lately, man. I can't pick one. There's so many decisions that were just weird. You know what I mean? Even like the draw between Kai Kamaka and who did he fight last? Danny Chavez.
Yeah.
Danny Chavez. That was a weird one too. It's like, I don't know if that was a draw, man. There was a winner in that fight. Even it was really close, but I don't know about a draw. And what sucks is it goes back to fighter pay. None of them get their win bonus, man. If they both got their full pay, no matter the result, then I wouldn't really complain too much about it. But, that's a lot of money, dude, that these dudes lost. So it sucks.
Early pick for Dern versus Rodriguez. That's an interesting one. I think I got to give a slight lean to Rodriguez because I think it'll stay standing, and I think she's a little bit better in terms of the striking. She's big for that weight class too, but Dern's got that good ground game. I don't know. It's tough. And Dern's striking's come a long way with Jason Perillo. I think right now I'll go Rodriguez, but I got to dig a little bit deeper on that one.
We're going to preview that one. I think that's the one we could preview. I like Dern.
Also might be getting something with Mackenzie next week. I was speaking at Paradigm the other day. She's, of course, got new management as well. Yeah. Are you planning to watch Marvel's Shang-Chi in theater next week? I'm not much of a movie guy, I'll be honest. Ever since I had a kid, it's been kind of difficult to go and see movies out. And I know you can order them at home. I don't have a lot of time to watch movies. So the answer to that question is no, I will not be watching it. What about you?
I don't really go to the movies either. And I don't watch superhero movies at all.
Yeah.
But I got to support my Asian folks, and I got to go watch this movie. I got to give my money to them, man, because this is the first Asian superhero ever.
Oh, there you go.
It took so long, man. I think if Bruce Lee was still alive, he would have probably been one of those guys. But what can you do?
Noah, if Gon beats Ngannou, do you think Stipe has a chance to defeat Gon and get the belt one more time before he retires? Would be a great way for him to go out on top and cement himself as the heavyweight GOAT. I think if Gon beats Ngannou, I don't think Stipe beats him. I think Gon is just a different breed, a heavyweight. We haven't really seen a really athletic, even aesthetically, but also in the cage as well, type heavyweight in quite some time. I know Stipe's a bit athletic as well, but you look at him, you don't think this guy's scary. With Gon, you sort of feel that way in terms of how he, just what he's able to do in there. So yeah, I don't think Stipe will ever win the belt again, unfortunately. And I'm a big Stipe fan. I think it was ridiculous how people treated him when he was champion, and everyone sort of, because I don't know, I with DC, I feel like because he works for ESPN and he has commentary, he's just sort of a fan favorite, and that sort of made people not like Stipe because it was sort of his rival. But yeah, I don't know. I think I think in general, I don't think Stipe is going to win the belt again.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I still believe Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. As we speak right now, he is gone, and Ngannou, they have to do so much more to overtake him. But man, Stipe, go to one championship, man. You want to do it. Let's go. Let's see what you can do somewhere else.
Well, it's contract. I think it's a contract issue. If you want
to make a trade. Let's trade somebody. Let's get DJ back to UFC and then set Stipe back over. I don't know.
Okay, we'll get a
So
couple more questions here. Yorio says, as much as I love Stipe, I want him to retire. I just don't want to see him lose 3 or 4 in a row. Most former champs do after a tough loss. I agree. I wouldn't be upset if he retired there. 10th says Topuria started training camp. Is Evlov versus Topuria possible? Another undefeated ranked fighters? Maybe, but we're seeing the matchmaking more lean towards that type of matchmaking, so it's possible. Like, I don't know who else is needing a fight right now, but I'd be fine with that fight.
Nah, I think those guys. I believe Evloev is ranked right now. Is he?
I believe so. Yeah. I think Topuria is ranked too. Is he not?
Oh, is he both? Are they both ranked? I think these guys could fight guys like Shane Burgos, guys upper in the rankings with coming off a loss. I think those are the fights you need to put these guys in to kind of grow their stock. You don't want to fight each other, right? Like this prospect, I could see prospect versus prospect outside the rankings, but inside the rankings, I don't know. I don't really like it too much.
Yeah, Topuria is 15, Evlov is 13th. So that's, I guess, the rankings wise it makes sense, but like we mentioned, it's too killing off prospect there. Roman says, I'm picking Marlon against Merab. Thoughts? Well, how does Marlon win? That would be my first question. I would pick Merab in that fight. Yeah, I think Marlon, I don't know what's happened to him. It's like going to ATT has actually like worked against him. Yeah, he's getting finished a lot, and it's a little, and granted he's losing to good guys, but still like I thought he was going to finish Corey Sandhagen. I thought he was going to finish Rob Font. None of that happened. It was the other way around. So you just got to wonder who he's going to get. And not only that, what was his issue against Cejudo? We ran out of gas in that fight. You think that's going to happen against a guy like Merab? Of course. Like, Merab's going to outpace him. So I would pick Merab in that fight.
Yeah, Marlon is like the best one-round fighter that we've seen in the bantamweight division, but that's about it, right? It's just the guy just falls off the cliff after the first 5 minutes. It's weird to see that, right? Just I don't know what is going on. Like he's training with the best dudes in the world. It's just maybe that's not enough for him. Maybe it's mental. We just don't know. Maybe it's mental. He doesn't really speak. He doesn't really do any interviews, so we don't know what's in his head. So I wish he would speak with and do more interviews, but he just doesn't.
Who's this, Evlov?
No, Marlon.
Oh, sorry, Marlon. Yeah, he does a little bit, but again, who's he managed by? And that's a challenge in itself. Thanks for another great show, guys. Never forgetting producer Michael. Of course, shout out to Michael, always making it work behind the scenes here. Euro, looking back now, do you think Anthony Pettis should have stayed in the UFC? Actually had 2 wins. No. If you have the opportunity to make $1 million, which he did, you take it. And I think at this point, Pettis is a bigger deal. Like, you got to remember, like, he was the main event of a PFL card that aired on ESPN. I think it was ESPN Plus, or it might have been the ESPN card. I can't remember, but he's the focus. If he's on a UFC card, he's probably, headlining a prelim or maybe like a first fight on a main card, but he's getting more popularity and more shine there. And plus he can just do more as not being under the UFC roster. So I don't think it was a bad decision. I just think Pettis is not what he used to be anymore.
Yeah, and like you said, he could do more. There's an off season in the PFL. He could go box. He could go do fucking karate tournaments. You can go to Karate Combat. Have you seen Karate Combat? It's pretty insane. I think Pettis would be perfect for that. They would need someone like that to come in, a big name to grow that promotion. I think Pettis would be perfect. Like, Pettis has those opportunities, you know what I mean? And also he has his own promotion. He has like fight promotion and management company. So like he has so much going on, man. I don't think the UFC would allow him to do all of these things, you know what I mean? And kept fighting the high level guys.
Take 2 more quick questions. Al Hassan hasn't been the same since Chaos Williams starched him. No, it was even before that, because I think that was a return fight back. No, it was the fight. Even he lost the fight before that. He lost to
Munir.
Yeah, in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, so he's had issues long before that. And then last one, Muradov will be the favorite until he retires. Well, until he loses, I guess. If you think he's good enough that he won't lose a fight, we'll see. Maybe we'll see what happens. I just think the line's a little off. I would favor him, but not minus 400 or whatever he was sort of labeled at. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. If we missed your question, just leave it in the comments. We'll get to it, or hit us up on social media. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Fanatics MMA channel. Also download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app, where you can go put in your picks for all the cards coming up here, PFL, UFC. A lot of upcoming events. JHK, what do you got coming up, and anything you got going on right now? You can let our audience know.
Well, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I have an interview that I did in the books with the Leech, and then I have an interview that I did with Hamzai. But all the other interviews, man, UFC, I got a bunch that have came out in the last week or so on Contender Series, guys. The Contender Series is starting next week. Go check those out on my page, and just follow me on JHK MMA on Twitter and all of that good stuff, and you'll see what's happening.
Yeah, and again, shout out to producer Michael. Follow, like I said, already plugged all my links and everything like that. Hope you guys enjoy the fights this weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another episode of this podcast. Hope you have a good week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Oh, another one. That one wrapped around, Joe.
Round it.
Look at him just pressing on the head here, though. That's
illegal.
His knee was down. His knee was all the way down.
Illegal knee. He told him before that, he said down. He said downed opponent.
His hands were down.